Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us for this month's webinar and training. I want to thank the association for letting us do this for you guys. My name is Carter Harkins. This is Taylor Hill here with me. You guys know us from Spark Marketer as well as the Blue Collar Proud show. This is going to be an interesting discussion, I think, about something that is looked at as important, but a lot of times we don't stop to really think about how we can change what's going on in our business with relationship to this. And this is the issue that we see time and time again, and that's communication in the business. Why would a couple of marketing guys talk about communication? I think our realization has been that at every point in business, marketing and communication are almost synonymous. I mean, marketing is all about communicating what you are to people who may need what you have. But communication in an organization is crucial to get right in order to be as effective as you can be. So Taylor and I want to have that conversation today and tell you guys a few things that we've learned just in our own business journey and things that we've seen that we can help clients with. So let's get into that conversation.
Yeah, I think it's real interesting. The first point is marketing is communication. Communication is marketing. And one of the really misses that I see in a lot of businesses is they're communicating who they are, and that's not who they are.
Yeah.
They show up and it's not the same. So being very consistent is kind of a key with communication, no matter what kind of communication.
That's right.
It is. The consistency is really important, because when people know you're consistent and you communicate consistently, then they can take it to the bank. And there's value in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very definitely.
So let me ask you this question and see if you agree with it. I mean, this statement,
Right.
I'll make the statement that every problem in business ends up being a communications problem. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I don't know if every problem, that's a big every, but I would say the vast majority, if not every.
I was thinking about this though, and just, in the past year, the big problems that we've encountered, both in our own business and in other businesses that we've worked with, almost every single one of those problems, if it wasn't completely a communications breakdown or problem, it at least had a big chunk, a large share of the problem could be attributed to failure of communication of some sort, either unclear communication, unmet expectations, or not setting clear expectations, making sure that an employee knows what needs to happen and how it's done here. All of those things end up being communication problems. It may manifest itself as, broken equipment or something in a customer's home. But if you back up far enough, you're going to realize this could have been prevented if we had done a better job of communicating.
Yeah, and I would even say that in your numbers, when your numbers aren't what you want them to be or what you expect them to be, my guess is you dig into those numbers and you're going to find out that whatever caused whatever you don't like or whatever you like in the numbers, either way, that a large portion of that is going to be due to communication, whether it's miscommunication, poor communication, or really good communication and better communication.
Yeah. I used to say that I used to think that I was a really good communicator, but the longer I've been in business, the more I've been humbled to realize I'm not as good a communicator as I thought, but I have realized how important communication is. And I would say that the one thing I work hardest on an ongoing basis is to make sure that I'm doing an effective job as a leader and as a business owner in communicating where I need to communicate. And when I fail, I own it quickly and try to, do a better job of communicating the next time.
Yeah, and communication is difficult in a lot of ways because we think that communication is everything about what we say. And I just listened to a guy just recently, and he was talking about that it's amazing that we always think that whatever we amplify, in other words, whatever we say, however we say it, that is so important. And yet we forget that those words would fall on nothing if there was no receivers.
Yes.
And so we have to not only pay attention to what we say and how we say it, because there are people receiving it out there. We need to know, how are they receiving it? What
filters do they see that through?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's so much more to communication than just paying attention to the words that you use.
Yes, absolutely. How is it being received? And that's crucial. The reason is because customers don't buy into what you tell them unless they see consistency and congruency between all of those channels, right? I can say one thing on my website. They can go and see third-party reviews and see that everything I've said on my website does not mirror the experience that previous customers have had. So that's a breakdown in communication.
Yeah.
What you're communicating is as much about the words you use as it is about the actions that you take, right?
Yeah.
Tell people, that's one thing, but show people, that's a whole different level of communication. And people tend to trust show more than tell.
Yes, and that there's an old adage, and I wish I'd written this down because I should have, but it's tell them what you want to say, then tell them what you say, then tell them what you just said, and then tell them what they should have heard. And I mean, there's like 7 or 8 of them. And it's just like, and it's all about telling. But because we're in businesses that we are able to show people, it really is more of a tell and show.
Yeah. They have to be congruent.
Yes, everything needs to be that consistency that we talked about before. Yeah.
So let's talk about, I think any time and money a business and a business owner and employees spend on becoming better communicators is going to be returned to them tenfold. Bottom line results better.
Yes.
As a result, less friction in their business, less time wasted solving problems that don't need to be problems, solving problems over and over again that don't need to be problems that that we should solve this once. Create a system or a document that specifies how it's done here, and then that communication becomes the standard, so that we nip problems in the bud much faster, those sorts of things. So I think this is worthwhile time to spend to really start understanding. So let's talk for a minute about and I'll ask you this question, what do you think world-class communication looks like in a service business?
Well, I will tell you, over the past probably 6 weeks, I have had to have 4 home service companies out to my home. Okay, I'll just tell you. So all 3 of them because of a squirrel.
Oh, wow.
So I've had a roofing company.
That's an expensive squirrel.
Yes, it was. I've had a roofing company out. I've had a gutter company out. I have had a animal trapping company out. And then I've had a company that came out and cleaned my dryer vents. Okay. All within literally the past 6 weeks. So as far as every single one of them did a fantastic job. I'll just tell you, all of them did a great job. All right. 2 of them called me ahead of time and let me know they were coming. 1 of them emailed me as well to let me know what to expect, along with the price of an anticipated price.
Yeah.
1 on the phone when I booked the appointment gave me the anticipated price based on what I told them. 1 of them that came out left me an estimate on a whole bunch of work that I didn't ask for. 1 of them reduced the price. Actually, 2 of them reduced the price because when they got out there, they found out that, it wasn't going to be as difficult as they thought. And 1 of them just picked everything up and then emailed us and said, hey, write a check for XYZ and send it here. Only 1 of them asked me for a review while they were there, which I gave them. I had it written and posted before they left. The other one that left me the estimate that was like unbelievably crazy in my opinion, but they did a great job. Okay, so I'm not knocking the work they did. It's just after the fact. When I called them back on the phone and told them that this was not something that I really wanted to do, then basically they were like, well, why? And then asked me to leave a review after that, which by the time I finished that conversation was not real happy. So if that gives you any idea, only one of them had world-class communication. Called me, texted me actually ahead of time, emailed me ahead of time, asked me for the review, but when they were there at my house, and then called and checked afterwards, about 3 days afterwards, had somebody from the office call and check again and make sure everything was operating as I wanted it to operate. So 1 out of 4, I had world-class communication.
Yeah. But in that example, what you just gave is a company that realized that, their customer typically wants to know certain things from them at certain times along that experience.
Yep.
And they were there at those times to communicate what needed to be communicated to you, so that you always felt like they were undergirding that experience and supporting it all the way through.
Absolutely.
At no point did they leave you wondering what's next, or to where you had to go find a phone number and make a phone call to ask a question or whatever. They provided information to you and supported you all the way through. And I think that's a great example of world-class communication.
And even when he asked that I give him a review, he said, could you mind putting my name and my helper's name in the review so that my boss will know that we've done a good job?
Yeah.
And I said, sure. Yeah. And I did.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
awesome.
it was easy. I mean, I gave them took less than 2 minutes to pull it up because they gave me all the information. They sent me a text and boom, it was done.
Wow, that's good. So let's talk for a minute about how we get there as companies. How do we, because when you first start a company, you have no idea what you need to communicate to someone or not. I mean, you don't have any experiences yet with customers, and so you may not understand what their most important questions are when they have those questions in the experience, and how to answer those questions in a way that does support the customer's experience, in a world-class way. So you're stumbling a little bit. You're just going out and doing what you do. But every interaction that you have with a customer is a learning experience that starts to add up. So how do we get from not knowing anything, not knowing how to communicate at a world-class level, to becoming a world-class level communication, a company that provides world-class communication?
I think the first thing is we all have to act. I mean, it's something called active listening. We all have to participate in
active versus
listening.
passive listening. Yeah.
Growing up, my dad knew all the answers, and so when you would have a conversation with him, it was amazing because you would just see that he was forming his entire dissertation, before you ever even finished telling him what the problem was. And so many times I'd walk away very frustrated because I didn't feel like he actually listened to what I had to say. He just told me what he thought. And I think there's a lot of us that way. And because I learned that, I realized a long time ago, I have that tendency. I have to be real careful that I'm really zoning in and making sure, whether it's an employee, a customer, whatever, that I don't let my mind go and try to formulate what I'm going to say prior to actually listening and finding out what the real problem and situation is. I mean, I just think that is something that we all should learn. I think if everybody learned that, it'd be just a better place to live in this world. But
instead of just simply pausing and talking and waiting for someone to finish so I can continue saying what I want to say.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have that tendency too. And it's what I found is that when I will put aside my assumptions about what the problem really is and allow doctors are famous for this, right? Yeah. If I'll put aside my assumptions, all of my experience, all of my expertise, all of my knowledge, all of my education, all of those things, I'll set those aside and simply listen actively to what someone is telling me. 9 times out of 10, it's different, first of all, than what my assumptions told me it was going to be when they first started talking.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, I'll do a much better job of addressing their real needs if I simply took the time to really care enough to listen to what they were actually saying. So it's a big lesson, I think, for anyone who is cursed with knowledge. And I say we call it the curse of knowledge because the more you know, the more you think you know in any given situation. And so that knowledge it interrupts the process of listening. It shows up faster than the problem, and it sometimes short circuits and circumvents your ability to solve a problem effectively simply because what I know is getting in the way.
Yeah. And I would even say, even if what you know ends up being what needs to be said, keep it to yourself until the person is finished. Mm-hmm. And then make sure that it applies here, and then say what you got to say.
Yeah.
It could be the same thing, but it's a respect issue.
Well, and a lot of times the way that shows up is we cut that person off from being able to say what they want to say. And we start in with, well, here's the problem, and here's what you need to do, or here's the solution. And that's, again, the curse of knowledge at work. We don't know what they're about to tell us. And to give them the space and the ability to say it in their own words is more about them than it is about us. Mm-hmm. It's more about making sure that they feel heard than it is about actually hearing. It's making sure that they have a chance to communicate the pain that they felt dealing with this before they gave you a call to come solve the problem or tell them what the problem even is. Making sure that they feel acknowledged is one of those, you talk about this all the time, it's one of those core human needs to feel validated and heard.
Yeah.
And we have the ability to either give that to our customer as part of the world-class communication that we give and actively listening to them, or to deny them that and frustrate them even further. And we see it in reviews all the time, don't we? Mm-hmm. I don't feel like they listened to my problem at all. Yep. They didn't care. They just showed up, got in the space, saw what the thing was, and fixed it, only to find out later that wasn't why I called them there in the first place, that the problem was something else. Mm-hmm. And, wasted my time and theirs, fixed something that didn't need to be, or that was maybe needed to be fixed, but it wasn't important enough for me to give them a call. Yeah. I needed them to do this. We see those in reviews all the time.
Yeah. And it's just, and I would even say, for your customers, but also your employees. I mean, man, the worst thing you can do to an employee is tell them over and over and over, this is how it's got to be. This is how you have to be. You got to show up, do. When they haven't even had an opportunity to tell you what their issue is. Yeah. So many times we jump ahead. And we also have something that I'm very guilty of. It's called reaction listening, which means I'm not going to listen at all. I'm just going to react to whatever was said or done or whatever. And that's not good.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's just not good.
Yeah. So here's a point or a story I'll tell about reaction listening or reacting to situations that happen in a business. So there's a Chinese restaurant not far from here. It's just a little takeout place that my wife and I sometimes go to, and you walk before you even walk in the door. You just walk up to the door, and the door has 3 or 4 signs on it. And the glass next to the door has 4 or 5, 6 signs, depending. And these signs are like pronouncements. And the owner of this place, and I've met him, and he was friendly, but when I met him, I've been looking at his signs for years, and just figured that this owner was some cantankerous old guy who had nothing better to do than to hate his customers and make pronouncements about stupid stuff in the signs all over his store. It was things like, it was some typical things like, the restroom is for paying customers only. Don't bother if you're not going to buy something. Mm-hmm. But the way he said it was sort of off-putting to a customer walking up and getting introduced to the business for the first time. But there were signs about, we no longer make this dish. Don't even ask because we won't even make it custom for you. So just don't waste my time or yours. Yeah. And just statements like that. But I counted one time while I was waiting on my order, and there were probably, I don't remember exactly, but it was over 30 signs, all posted in different places all over the place. There was one on the fish tank that said something about don't let your kids, tap on the glass. There was another sign about, their egg rolls being different than, they no longer sold 4. It was now 3 in an order or something. I just, these things. And what it made me realize was when I met him, he was a fairly nice guy. what I realized was this was a communications attempt to get ahead of the questions that he always got asked.
Right.
But rather than try to listen to customers and what they wanted and then offer them something that they wanted, he was hell-bent on making his customers conform their behavior to what he wanted.
Yeah.
And the way that came off was not a world-class communication experience. And we still went there because it was close and fairly decent, short order Chinese food. So, we went, but it was a lousy customer experience. And it made me realize that if by listening, we stopped reacting and started listening and saying, what can I do to become what my customers really want from me? If he had done that, his business would have boomed, I'm sure. Yeah. But as it was, he just invited a conflict relationship with every customer that walked in. Customers would read these signs and immediately think, this guy's going to try to, prevent me from getting what I want. So I'm going to have to fight for what I'm trying to, for what I want, or I'm going to have to pay extra or whatever. So there was this adversarial relationship right from the beginning. And I don't think it needed to be there.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting that because we see our business from our point of view. So we think everybody sees our business from our point of view.
Right.
And that is so far from the truth. And so the real impetus is to leverage the knowledge of your team, leverage the knowledge of your customers, and figure out, what do they ask? Figure those things out and address those things so that you can back away from being the owner, the founder, the CEO of your business, whatever you call yourself, and say, okay, what are my customers really looking for here? Mm-hmm. What can I do to answer their questions before they're ever asked? And I'm talking about, just the top 3 to 5 questions that your customers ask. What can you tell them ahead of time? Give them information,
but in a way that's not just posting signs up and a set of rules or whatever that are so arbitrary. But a large part of it is, how do I remove the need for this question?
Yeah.
By telling them, how we operate or setting an expectation, from the beginning. But you can do that in broader strokes than a list of rules. Yeah. You can communicate that whatever the need is, that we're capable of serving that says a lot about, your service. But if you say that, you better be ready for the occasional outside the box or, slightly, edge cases of services that people want from you. But finding a way to intelligently structure that in a way that favors the customer rather than making it seem territorial or rules based. That I think is where the friction really lies, right? And your team hears it all the time. They're out in the field. You could probably have a 30-minute meeting one morning with your team and say, okay, what are the top questions you constantly get asked? That if we created a page on our website or included it in a what to expect for your appointment email that went out before the appointment, we could answer all of these questions and give our customers a real peace of mind that they're in good hands before we ever get there. And it'd be a fantastic, way of doing it. Just have somebody write it who doesn't sound like they're, wagging their finger and telling people, don't ask for this because we won't do that.
Well, and I think that also applies to your CSRs, to the people answering the phone at your office.
Yes.
I'm sure there are typical questions that people ask that you can come up with a really nice answer that everybody in your office can communicate. Those are no-brainer, really active things that you can do. And it won't do anything but improve your business. And so the next thing is, you got a choice. You got new information. We've given you 3 or 4 things that you can actively do at your office. So now you got to make a decision, which is, are you going to implement it, or are you just going to stay the way you are?
Yeah, that's it.
That's a choice.
Like we said earlier, every dollar spent, all the time that you spend in finding out how to communicate better with your customer is going to return $1 or more back to your business and make it easier. That's really it. Better communication reduces friction. If it's not reducing friction, then it's not better communication.
It's true.
Better communication paves the way for customers to feel better about their choices in choosing you for their service, and makes them feel better about spending more money with you than maybe even they planned for, because you've done a better job of explaining why they would get value from that additional spend. It's a win-win. So communicate, communicate effectively. Figure out how you can communicate at a world-class level. That's it. Good stuff. Anything else you want to?
No, I think that's great.
Well, guys, if you have any questions about how we can help you as a marketing company to communicate more effectively using your website, how that spills over into the way that your CSRs answer the phone, how you track that to make sure that you're communicating more effectively by seeing a return. All of those things are things that we can help you with at Spark Marketer. So check out our website. It's sparkmarketer.com. And you can even use the online form there to get in touch with us. We'd love to give you a site review of your website, help you with that strategy, give you a customer success plan that maps out and shows you what exactly you could use in your business right where you are at this point to get where you want to go. So let us help you with that if you would. So just go to our website, sparkmarketer.com, for that. We're going to see you again next time right here for another one of these. And again, thanks to the association for letting us get in front of you and help you with these things. Go out there and do a better job of communicating. Thanks, everyone.